When the subject of money or finance appears, a lot of people tend to become uncomfortable. But there's no need to. Why do people get uncomfortable when it comes to money? And in common of that is because people lack understanding. First of all, I've already explained the difference between money and currency. If you don't know that difference, please go watch the video I've uploaded entitled The Lie Behind the Love of Money. Go watch it before continuing listening to this audio recording. Or else you may not understand anything I'm about to say here. Okay, I'll continue here. When people are faced with financial difficulties, or let's say they have enough money for the rent, but suddenly their laundry machine has broken and they need to pay, let's say, 400 euros to get a new one, but where do we get 400 euros? When people are faced with such stuff, they tend to look in the conventional manners, where those conventional manners are legal, which is borrowing or working extra hours at a job to save money to buy one, or to rent one, or a criminal one, a non-approved one, through scamming or to get the cash to buy the laundry machine, or maybe by ordering the laundry machine on a fake credit card. I mean, when it comes to hindrance in purchasing stuff, in transfers, when it comes to hindrance and financial issues, we have our conventions, and those conventions are practical, and they are common, and they are validated, both the criminal ones as what we call the legal ones. But people are stuck in a duality of criminal versus legal, that they don't see that they are stuck in a duality. Now, and because they're stuck in that duality, they want the validation of being part of the legal so that people will approve of them. Some will go into the criminal to get validation in the criminal world, but they will hide it to still get validation from the legal world. But all of that is a fiction. Let me tell you, it's a fiction. When it comes down to it, money is just an outworking. That's it. Money is an outworking. It's an outworking of what's going on spiritually. Okay, I'm going to give illustrations for you to understand what I'm saying here. So be patient. Okay, let's use the name Bob again. Bob comes from an Irish family living in Northern Ireland. For generations long, his family has been peasants. Since the 1800s, none of his ancestors since the 1800s, since the beginning of the 19th century, was ever into any profession like becoming a doctor or a merchant or whatever. They've been peasants. And as peasants, they were often in conflict with the noblemen, the British noblemen that run the economy of Ireland at the time. At the time, it was not Northern Ireland. Ireland was just a part of what would become the United Kingdom. Alright? And all these conflicts throughout the generations kept a paranormal heaviness on the people that lived in that town. So Bob was from that place. So Bob spoke the same dialect. Bob had a similar way of thinking. But Bob lives now in 2017. He had smartphones and all of that. He was asking himself why he never got the opportunity to own his own house. Because since the 1970s, many of the small farmers lost their land, so now they had to live in small apartments they had to rent. And they had to work long hours just in order to pay the rent and remain alive. Bob was asking himself, why is this like this? I had a degree at a university in Belfast, but still, I got almost no. When I applied for jobs, Only one responded, and I got this low functional fare. So Bob began to think that there might be something going on. Bob did not want to join a criminal gang because there are criminal gangs in Northern Ireland that you can join, and when you participate, you will get paid. Some do it, but Bob didn't want to do it because Bob knew it would lead to trouble. But Bob didn't want to just have to put up and endure his current situation either. He saw it was taking a toll on his health, and besides that, it was time robbing. It robbed its time. His time, I mean. Bob was thinking, 12 months in a year, 10 months I need to work. Only on Sundays I'm free. And only 2 months spread over the whole year I can enjoy myself by either going to Greece or to France. But that's it. And so Bob was thinking, okay, this needs to be over. And as I mentioned before, finances are an outbreak of what's going on in the spiritual. Bob is not a believer, he's not following Christ, so Bob went to a fortune teller, as people in the world tend to do when they're desperate, because Bob wanted answers. And there's nothing wrong with Bob wanting answers, but Bob went to a dangerous source to get answers, if you get what I mean. Okay, so Bob went to the fortune teller, and the fortune teller told him plainly, Bob, since the year 1750, the people that lived in this region of Ireland, they became poor, due to a war that the English fought against the French. And many of the young men of this community died. And a lot of the women that were left behind never married, and they died also. And this anger, this conflict remained. And the people here, they used to be wealthy, but since then, the people of this region, they've been plagued by poverty and crime. And you descend from those people. So that tension has also passed on to you. Haven't you noticed that you have a degree of one of the best schools in Ireland as a whole, both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland itself, but still you don't manage to be, you're not hired? Haven't you noticed that? And then Bob says, yeah, true. And the fortune teller tells him, Bob, you came here because you want answers, because you're fed up with working long hours, 40 hours a week, sometimes 50 hours a week, and only 1 month in the year you can go on holiday. You don't want that existence anymore. You also don't want to go to the criminal world because you know that's going to be dangerous. So you are stuck, you are frustrated, and you really want a way out, right? Bob says, correct. Okay, Bob, this is what you need to do. I'm going to give you some cards. You place them in your house, and every day when you wake up, you cite the prayers that's on those cards. You light a candle once a week. You don't have to do it every day. Just do that. And this empowerment will break the yoke that's upon you. So Bob paid the money, and he left. And in the beginning, Bob thought, this is BS. This crap, this ain't real. This is superstition. But Bob is real. Notice, what do I have to lose? So Bob began to do it. When Bob began to do it, after about a week at the job, someone gave him a tip. This was just a customer. Bob was not working in a restaurant, but as someone that had to advise customers. There was a customer that was so happy with his advice that the customer donated £4,000 to him. And Bob was thinking, what? £4,000? Whoa, I can't take this. The customer said, take it, you deserve it. Bob kept it quiet. Oh, when he had £4,000, which is a lot of money. Bob never held that much money in his hands. He never saw the customer again because the customer was a businessman from Brazil that was only there for a few days. So there were no strings attached. There was no favor in return. The customer didn't even knew Bob's name. It was just something spontaneously. Bob was overrun. So Bob put the money away, and Bob began to, he just continued working. After a while, his boss told him, Bob, you're working way too long. And look, we need to fire some people, and I really don't want to fire you, but you have to go and work part-time. So Bob agreed because Bob thought, okay, I have no other option. It's either part-time or no job at all. And Bob remembered he still had £4,000. So Bob, even though he was working part-time, he didn't earn that much, he still could pay the rent at the end of the month. And Bob kept on praying to those cards, which has so-called Catholic saints on them. But we know what's the real deal with it. After a while, Bob heard about people that were trading in currency. Now Bob knew about it, but Bob had no understanding of how the stock market operated. And there was this Korean guy that was an exchange student in Northern Ireland, and he said that, well, if you want, I can enroll you as a trader in South Korea. There's an office in Hong Kong, and you can just try it out if you want. And Bob thought, well, why not? Bob didn't have to pay, so Bob registered. And Bob, when he downloaded the software, it just did something. He didn't even know what he was doing. He saw all those numbers and those graphs and was thinking, what the heck is this? Bob was never good in math anyway, so Bob became tired when he even looked at the screen. So he did it a few times, and then one day he received an email. And the email stated that he had gained a lot of money. And he could either choose to reinvest it or he could withdraw the money. He chose to withdraw. And it was in Korean currency, so he didn't know how much it was. On his bank account, about a week later, there was £50,000. When Bob saw that, he thought he was dreaming, Bob couldn't believe it. But it was true, it was from a Korean bank account from that stock market he was enrolled in. And Bob was thinking, whoa, what is this? Well, and Bob began to realize, hold on a minute, what I'm doing here, with these cards, with lighted candles and all, it works. Now what has happened here? Bob had a paranormal tension upon him that kept him in poverty. That was a paranormal chain. The demons around noticed that Bob didn't want to live like this anymore. So the demons did not want him to be delivered. So what did demons do? The demons put the thought of going to a fortune teller into the mind of a co-worker of Bob, and they caused that co-worker to talk out loud about it so that Bob would hear it, so that Bob may think, okay, why not? Because Bob was desperate. And he had a reason to be desperate. He was not desperate for nothing. He really wanted a change. So when Bob went to the fortune teller, it was arranged by the demons. So the demons came with a solution, and the solution worked. Bob was now working part-time, 16 hours a week. He was dressed well. He wore some expensive clothes, and he often went on city trips through Europe. And he bought a new flat screen TV, so wow, there was a big improvement over there. But what has happened? The demons unlocked doors for Bob in the paranormal, and demons in Asia and the diverse places cooperated with the scam. So that businessman that Bob encountered from Brazil, that was a customer, he was a guy that, well, he loved to just spend money like crazy. He was a waster of money, and the demons caused that guy to waste money on Bob. And Bob received that 4,000 pounds. And later, at the stock market, demons manipulated stuff so that Bob could gain 50,000 pounds. You get an idea here, but Bob's not aware of all of that. Bob got relieved from that poverty existence. He got relieved from having to work so hard just to remain alive. He was not enjoying himself. He went to on city trips. He made pictures, put them on Instagram. He even made an Instagram account. He met other people while going abroad. So things were working out. But hold on a minute. I say hold on a minute. There's another thing going on here. The bank where Bob had his account saw that 50,000 pounds was placed on the account from South Korea. And this was a lot of money, so the bank was thinking, hold on a minute, Bob, how can Bob never went to South Korea? How can he get money from South Korea? So they did their investigation and they saw it was from a stock market. And they began to think, oh, maybe Bob is into stock exchange. So they put on Bob's accounts that he was a stock trader. Also, the taxation service of Northern Ireland put that on Bob's accounts because they thought if he gained money from that, so he must be a trader in his free time. So that was left. It was left like that. But still, the authorities in the town where Bob lived, they became anxious that Bob had so much money at his disposal. They didn't know what Bob was about to do with that money. So there were two agents from the Northern Irish Police Department, from the Northern Irish Police, that were assigned to watch Bob. They followed Bob on social media. Some even followed Bob in a car, and Bob went to work and came back. One of them even went on a holiday where Bob was. And here's the thing. The people around Bob realized that Bob was spending a lot. Bob was not even aware he was spending more. He wasn't even aware of it. He was so into the relief he had that he didn't realize that his behavior changed. And people around him noticed his behavior. And they were thinking, how can Bob go on holiday so often? Where does he get the money? So people around Bob became suspicious. They became upset and frightened. Some even began to think he might be part of a criminal gang. That he may even be a mafia figure. Why? Because Bob began to wear white suits with a fake Rolex. The Rolex looked real, but it was fake. People thought it was real. So people began to think, man, he's like a mobster. So what has happened? The financial difficulty was gone. But Bob was not delivered. Bob was charmed with earning a lot of money. Money came to him easily. That was a charm. But the charm did not protect Bob from the reactions of his environment. Because this is what you need to understand. When you have the ability to spend, people get anxious. Because what if you spend it on things they don't want? Look, if you're some guy from South Africa, some Zulu guy from South Africa, and you instantly get thousands of pounds, people that live in London are not going to care about it. Oh, happy for him. Happy for him, people are going to say. They don't know you, they have nothing to do with you, and how you spend the money over there, it doesn't affect them. But the people around you, or the people that know you through social media, they may not be really around you, but they know of your existence. Once they notice that you have the ability to spend a lot, they're going to ask, how did this happen? Why did it happen? And they're also going to think, where is it going to spend it? What if he's going to spend it on criminal activity? Or let's say people around Bob begin to think, if he's in criminality, what if he... Okay, just think about this. People that couldn't stand Bob didn't really have people that couldn't stand him because Bob, most of the time he was at work. But let's say there were people that had something against Bob. Or they had people from the past that couldn't stand Bob. Now Bob at the time could not retaliate. Bob had to endure and take it and move on. Now Bob could spend. So what if Bob could hire a group of dogs to beat those people up? That was a possibility now because he could spend. So the people that had bad feelings about Bob again became upset and became frightened of what might happen. So the community became, the community became anxious about Bob's prosperity. So without Bob being aware of it, Bob did get prosperity. The charm worked out prosperity. The previous charm that kept him as a slave in financial difficulty, that charm was gone. That's what he got through the bloodline from his parents. That was gone. But now there was another charm, and that charm brought prosperity quickly. But that quick prosperity startled other people, and it caused fright in other people, and that fright developed into hatred and suspicion towards Bob. So Bob now had sorrow around him without him even being aware of it. Look, and that's what I want to warn you about. A lot of people, they want their spending issues to be resolved. They want more currency so they can spend more. And who wouldn't want more currency to spend? Okay, let's be honest and real about it. Who wouldn't want more currency to spend? Bob did not want to gain that currency in a criminal manner or in a manner that would upset people because he didn't want to have the police behind him and he didn't want to have to hide how he got what he had. So that's also understandable. So Bob went for a solution, and there's nothing wrong with him going for a solution. But the solution he received was short-lived. Because shortly afterwards, Bob began to notice that there were people following him. Bob one day got involved with a woman from South England that lived in Northern Ireland. And that woman that he was involved with noticed the anger that a lot of people had towards Bob. Bob didn't even notice it. Bob was so into the prosperity that he became insensitive to the angry emotions that people had towards him. He didn't sense hostility. But that woman that Bob was involved with, the first day she went home with Bob, she sensed the heaviness and she became frightened. And the woman began to tell Bob, if you love me, move with me to London. The woman didn't want to tell Bob what happened, because one day the woman was leaving Bob's house and a group of dogs began to harass her, asking her if she knew that Bob. She couldn't deny it, but she felt that if she confessed that she knew Bob, they would have kidnapped her. So Bob, because he was in love, he moved to south of London. He got a new job over there, so he was away. But the tensions that developed towards Bob in Northern Ireland were still there. And the authorities in Northern Ireland reported it to the authorities in London, so it haunted Bob. So he was in a relieved environment. There were no angry emotions against him there, but he was being watched still. Now, what am I trying to reveal with this illustration? Instant prosperity, instant material prosperity, and sometimes even instant social prosperity can blind you. Without you being aware of it, it can cause you to lose perspective. And because that, you're not aware and alert anymore. That's why for a believer to have treasures on the earth, it can be quite dangerous. There's nothing wrong with having currency. There's nothing wrong with having external stuff like cars, houses, all that. There's nothing wrong with that. But having a lot of external stuff can become dangerous for you, especially if you're a believer. Alright? So, about finances, look, I wanted to make more illustrations, but I think one illustration is enough to point this out. When it comes to finances, deal with them spiritually first. Yes, you can apply for a job. Yes, you can look for another job if the job you're at is draining you. And yes, it is good that you don't want to get involved with criminals, all of that. I'm not blaming you. But deal with money from the spirit realm. And look, Bob did deal with it from the spirit realm, but he dealt with the wrong spirits, with paranormal entities. And it did work. Bob didn't get prosperity. And look, when Bob was working all the time, he had no time to have a relationship to start a relationship, to even consider marriage. So Bob now, because he had material prosperity, he had more free time. And Bob, that's how Bob met that woman that later became his wife. So the paranormal entities, they did work in Bob's favor, but the favor is short-lived. Because Bob, anytime he goes on an island to visit his relatives, he would have those angry people off the streets, and even civilians, just regular civilians, that are after him. After a few times, his relatives in Northern Islands told him plainly, Bob, don't come and visit us anymore. We don't want you here. They never told Bob why. Why? Because his relatives were harassed by envious, jealous people. So now Bob was married, but he had no contact anymore with his own kin and with his own relatives. And the relatives of his wife, his family-in-law, they had an exploitative attitude towards Bob. So you see what's going on here? Look, as a believer, when it comes to finances, you go to the Word, you decree the promises of the Most High upon you in your situation, you decree you're debt-free, you decree that you walk in abundance, you decree all of that. Yes, you do it. You do it in the name of the Lord in faith. Because if you do it in the name of the Lord but you have no faith, then it's useless. So you are spiritually active. Okay, Bob was spiritually active, but on the side of the paranormal, and it worked. But it was a paranormal operation without him being aware of it. Bob had a charm. It was not a blessing. Too often we look for charms because we see often we see people that are charmed and we want to be like them. No, don't. Especially if you're a believer, don't. You have something far, far better, far more effective, and far more long-lasting than they have. As a believer, you have to learn to walk by faith. Yes, you do the practical stuff. You go to your job, you behave at work, or you get an education. You look at your budget, how much you can spend on. Yes, you have the practical side, but if you really want abundance and change in your financial situation, or if you're in debt and you really want to get out, then operate from the spirit, from the supernatural, not the paranormal, from the supernatural. Then you will both get the relief and the protection while you have that relief. Okay, let me give a short other illustration. You have a woman, I'm going to female example now. Or let me give a male example. You have a guy called Luis. He's from Mexico, and he had debt at the bank. But that bank was also run by a Mexican drug cartel. So Luis realized, man, I want to get rid of this debt because I don't want to be involved with a bank that has the drug cartel related to it. What if those people, those criminals now want to end the debt in a way that's not legal? And Luis knew that many police officers in Mexico were corrupt, so he couldn't rely on the legal system. But Luis had no other way to pay off his debt. So Luis paid every month 200 Mexican, I don't know, does Mexico use the peso? Or I don't know, but okay, so he paid 200 of the Mexican currency every month from his wages. And Luis began to pray in the spirit. He began to operate in the supernatural. Luis was filled with the Holy Spirit and began to pray. He kept on paying his debt and going to work. He kept doing his practical stuff, but at the same time, every morning and every evening, he was in the spirit. One day, Luis came to his work, and his boss told him, "Luis, don't come anymore, you're fired." And they pushed him out of the building. Luis was upset. Luis was thinking, "Oh dear, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to feed my family? How am I going to..." But instantly, Luis realized, "Oh, no. This is an attack of Satan. No, I need to walk by faith." So Luis began to declare biblical prosperity upon him. He began to declare the anointing. He began to operate in the spirit directly. He didn't know what to say to his wife. So he got at home. Before he arrived at home, there was a mailman that handed a package to him. Luis thought, "Okay, it's a package for me." So he opened it. And in it, it was a declaration of the bank that he had no debt, and that it was written, it was sealed by the bank that said that he was debt free, and that the debt he had was a fraud. It was a scam by employees in the bank. So, and there was also another letter from the court of law that confirmed it. So what has happened now? When Bob was praying and praying, demons at the bank became frightened, and his prayers kept on going, and how do I say it? The demons left. And what happened now? The prayers that Luis was uttering out, it caused confusion at the bank. And because of that, the administration of the bank began to think that Luis was scammed. That Luis was the victim of some scam years ago, even though it was his mortgage and his student loan. So the bank, to compensate Luis, they erased the debt. They even declared him debt-free. Also, the judge put his seal on it, and they compensated him in dollars. And Luis got the compensation, and with the compensation he had, later Luis moved to another place. And Luis later found out that his employer at the job was involved with a gang that was in rivalry towards the local drug cartel. And that 2 months after Luis was fired, there was gunfire that happened at that office. So Luis also escaped his potential worst scenario, that he might have been shot down. Now look, if Luis would have went to the paranormal, a similar thing would have occurred, but Luis would have still be there at the job and he would have been shot down. Because Luis operated by faith in Christ, not only did the financial money issue was resolved, but he was also guarded. He had a total package, a total protection, and that's what you don't have with a charm. A charm works one way, but a charm makes you strong in one area, but leaves you open to danger at the other. A charm always comes with danger, but you never see the danger. Others often will. Now, okay, I'm going to close this recording now. I've been recording this for long now. When it comes to finances, operate from the spirit every day. That being said, be at peace.